My husband was in the late stages of stomach cancer. Before he passed away, he cried and said he regretted marrying me. He apologized for making his childhood sweetheart, who had waited for him in widowhood for 50 years, suffer alone. Then, he decided to change his will, leaving his entire inheritance to her disabled son. I was so furious that I died on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 1 week before we were supposed to get our marriage certificate. This time, both my husband and I called off the wedding. He ran straight into the arms of his long-widowed childhood sweetheart, Lisa Carter. I picked up the phone and called home. "I agree to the arranged marriage," I said. On the other end of the line, my parents hesitated for a long time before cautiously asking, "Sophie, did Ethan Miller bully you?" I held back my tears and replied, "Zachary Evans has always been good to me since we were kids. I'm willing to marry him." In my past life, when Ethan and I first started our business, we suffered through countless hardships. At first, my parents refused to help us, and it was Zachary who used the Evans family's resources, both financially and strategically, to help me earn my first fortune. Later, when Ethan betrayed me on his deathbed, nearly leaving my children penniless, it was Zachary who sent his family's team of lawyers to fight for my children's rightful share of the estate. Ethan even left a will stating that he didn't want to be buried with me. It was Zachary, disregarding public opinion, who insisted on having me buried in the Evans family's ancestral cemetery. In my previous life, I abandoned Zachary, someone from the same social standing as me, to suffer alongside a penniless Ethan. I thought that if I endured all the hardships with Ethan and helped him build his empire, he would cherish me in return. But in the end, after becoming the richest man in the city, Ethan said he would rather be poor again if it meant he could pursue true love. This time, I would grant him his wish, to be with his long-waiting childhood sweetheart. "Zachary, in this life, I want to be buried beside you, rightfully and honorably." Hanging up the phone, I planned to go to the grocery store, but on my way, I unexpectedly overheard a conversation between Ethan and Lisa. "Lisa, just wait 3 more months," Ethan whispered. "Sophie's parents only have one precious daughter. They will definitely give her a huge dowry. Once I go back to the city with her and her parents hand over the money, I'll quit my job, sell everything, and take the dowry with me to South City, to you." Lisa's dew-like eyes were red, filled with tears, as she looked pitifully at Ethan. "Are you sure I'm not a burden to you? Just for me, you're marrying a woman you don't even love?" she asked. Ethan couldn't hold back anymore. He pulled Lisa into his arms and sighed. "I already lost you once. This time, I will never let go again." A flicker of triumph flashed in Lisa's eyes, but she deliberately put on a worried expression. "But if we take Sophie's dowry, what will happen to her?" Ethan scoffed indifferently. "Sophie's family is rich. This money means nothing to them." I nearly laughed out loud from sheer anger. It was the same in my past life. Whenever we ran into financial trouble, Ethan would act like it was only natural for my family to step in and bail him out. If he lacked connections, then obviously my parents should humbly ask for favors on his behalf. This time, I wanted to see, without my family's money and resources, how did Ethan think he could still become the wealthiest man in South City? When I got home, I started packing my things. Ethan suddenly walked in. "Sophie, Lisa's having pregnancy complications. The doctor said she needs to be transferred to the city hospital for better care," he said. "You know her family is poor. They don't have much money. I'm thinking of using the money from our wedding banquet to pay for her treatment." "Okay." I cut him off. Ethan was startled. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. He gave me a confused look before continuing. "Lisa's in-laws don't care about her, and she has no one to take care of her. I plan to stay with her at the hospital for a few days." "Okay," I said again. Ethan frowned, hesitating. "Sophie, don't overthink this," he said, trying to reassure me. "Lisa was my best friend's wife. My friend passed away and now she's carrying his child. As his best friend, it's only right for me to help her." I nodded. "Help her then." "I'm not stopping you from taking care of Lisa during her pregnancy." Ethan stared at me in disbelief. "You really don't mind?" I shook my head. Ethan smiled in satisfaction, then stretched out his hand toward me. "We're getting married soon. Didn't your mom secretly send you some money? I'm worried about hospital expenses. Give me another $1,000. I didn't even look up. I don't have any money. Ethan's expression changed. How could you not have money? Just a few days ago, you told me we didn't have enough for the wedding, but it was fine because your mom was going to send you $2,000. I glanced at him and replied flatly, my dad doesn't approve of our marriage. My mom wanted to send me the money, but my dad stopped her. Ethan immediately panicked. Then what about the dowry? I lowered my gaze, hesitating for a moment before speaking softly. There is no dowry either. Ethan exploded. No money and no dowry? Then what's the point of getting married? I curled my lips into a faint smirk. Then let's not get married. Ethan. Let's break up. At my words, Ethan pressed his lips together, looking visibly annoyed. He was silent for a moment, then lowered his head and said, since you don't want me to go to the hospital with Lisa for her pregnancy care, then fine, I won't go. But go get me $200. I'll buy some old hens and a few baskets of farm eggs for her. After all, she's carrying my best friend's child. I cut him off coldly. You're rushing to take care of her so eagerly. If I didn't know any better, I'd think Lisa was actually pregnant with your child. Ethan's face turned bright red, and he shouted angrily, Lisa is already miserable enough being a widow. Now you're ruining her reputation too? Do you want to drive her to her death? I didn't want to argue with him anymore, so I replied indifferently. You're overthinking it. From now on, I won't interfere in your business with Lisa. If you want to spend money on her, go ahead. If you want to buy her things, do whatever you want. If you want to stay by her side and take care of her pregnancy, that's your choice. Then I looked him straight in the eye and said firmly, Ethan, I'm not joking. The wedding is canceled. I'm going home. Ethan froze, his expression turning panicked as he grabbed my arm. Sophie, what do you mean by this? Lisa is a pregnant widow. I was just going to the hospital with her to help. Can't you be more understanding? Can't you be a little kinder? Just then, Lisa walked over, her large pregnant belly evident as she approached. She smiled gently at me and said, Sophie, it's all my fault. You're about to marry Ethan, and now you two are arguing because of me. Please don't fight over this, okay? It's my fault. I'll apologize. I won't go to the hospital anymore. I can stay home for my pregnancy care. It's just that the doctor said I'm anemic and need to get some nutrient injections and buy some supplements like donkey hide gelatin. But I really don't have any money. As she spoke, she glanced at Ethan with a troubled expression. Ethan immediately stepped toward her and reassured her. Don't worry about anything, Lisa. Just focus on taking care of yourself. I'll go to the city later to buy you some donkey hide gelatin. Oh, and I'll also get some red dates, brown sugar, and farm eggs. I'll bring them to you tonight. While speaking, Ethan deliberately turned to look at me, signaling for me to hand over the money. Lisa noticed my silence, and a glimmer of triumph flashed across her eyes. She then added, also, for the childbirth and the baby's 1-month celebration party, I calculated that I'll need at least $2,000. She sighed and turned to me with a pitiful expression. Sophie, I'm not like you. Your parents are city officials. I'm just a poor girl from the countryside. My parents favor sons over daughters. When I got married, all they gave me was 2 quilts, no money at all. Ethan told me your mom sent you $2,000 for the wedding. Could I borrow that money for now? Lisa grasped my hand lightly, her voice sweet and pleading. Don't worry, Sophie. Once the baby is born, even if I have to sell everything I own, I'll make sure to pay you back. Before I could respond, Ethan interrupted with an emotional smile. Lisa, we're family. What's the point of talking about borrowing and repaying? Once Sophie marries me, she'll be your sister-in-law. Isn't it only right for a sister-in-law to take care of her brother's wife? Lisa widened her eyes, looking at me expectantly. Lisa looked at me expectantly. So about that $2,000, I suddenly felt amused. I was curious, what expressions would Ethan and Lisa have when they realized that all their scheming was for nothing? So, I deliberately said, when my mom tried to send me the money, my dad found out. He said we won't be getting it anytime soon. We have to wait a few more days until he calms down. Ethan immediately pressed for details. How many days? How long do we have to wait? At least a week, I replied casually. As soon as I finished speaking, Ethan and Lisa exchanged a quick glance, their faces lighting up with excitement. Before leaving, Ethan turned to me with a gentle expression. Sophie, I really appreciate how understanding you are. The way you care for Lisa, this is what being a good sister-in-law looks like. Don't worry about the $2,000 just yet. I'll borrow some money from the villagers. Later, you just need to sign the IOU. When your mom sends the money, you can pay it back. I lowered my head and smiled, pretending to agree. Ethan nodded in satisfaction, then carefully helped Lisa as they walked away together. That afternoon, Ethan started going door to door, borrowing money. Without exception, he used my name as the guarantee. Some villagers were skeptical and came to ask me directly if I was really the one borrowing the money. I pointed at Lisa's house, where 3 newly built brick rooms stood. Whether the money was borrowed by me or Ethan, in the end, it's all going to Lisa for her pregnancy care. The money is for her, and if we can't pay it back, well, isn't Lisa still here? That house of hers is brand new. If needed, they can always sell it for a few thousand. Hearing that there was a house as collateral, the villagers quickly agreed, and Ethan successfully borrowed $2,000. That evening, Lisa's eyes turned red with gratitude as she clutched the expensive donkey hide gelatin that Ethan had bought for her. Sophie, thank you so much for lending me the money. I waved my hand dismissively and gestured toward Ethan. If you want to thank someone, thank Ethan. He's the one who went door to door borrowing it. I made sure to say this loudly enough for the passing villagers to hear. They glanced at Ethan and Lisa, their gazes filled with subtle amusement. A strong, energetic man spending all his time taking care of a young, pretty widow. Anyone with common sense would know how that looked. And yet, these two either truly didn't realize or were pretending to be oblivious, thinking that hiding behind the excuse of being old classmates could shield them from gossip. In my past life, I had noticed Ethan's unusual affection for Lisa, but I had been foolish enough to cover for them in order to protect his reputation. But this time, without me playing the fool and helping them keep up appearances, they didn't even bother hiding it. One of them stayed at her house all day, fetching water, chopping firewood, washing clothes, cooking, acting like he was the rightful man of the house. The other, heavily pregnant, lovingly wiped his sweat and served him water. As if she was the legitimate wife. The villagers found the whole situation entertaining. They laughed at me behind my back, saying that even a pregnant woman could steal my man. But I simply smiled and said nothing. I turned around and mailed my last package at the post office. Time flew by, and soon, the day arrived, the day I was supposed to marry Ethan in my past life. I hadn't left yet because I was waiting for this exact moment. This time, I was going to shatter Ethan's little dream with my own hands. Early in the morning, I packed my things and waited at the youth camp for Ethan. To my surprise, Lisa came along, her pregnant belly prominent beneath a bright red cotton jacket. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold as she followed behind Ethan. I glanced at myself. I was wearing a deep blue work jacket. If someone didn't know any better, they would have thought Lisa was the one getting married today. Before I could say anything, Ethan spoke up first. Sophie, back when my family was poor, Lisa and my best friend never even had the chance to take a wedding photo together. My best friend and I looked quite similar, so since we're already going to the city for my wedding photos, I thought, why not help Lisa take one too? It'll be like a late wedding photo for her and my friend. The moment those absurd words left his mouth, the surrounding villagers who had gathered to watch were stunned. I, on the other hand, simply chuckled and said, why don't you two just make it official and get your marriage license while you're at it? Ethan's face immediately darkened. Sophie, what do you mean by that? Ethan's expression darkened. What do you mean by that? I smirked coldly. I meant exactly what I said. We're not even married yet, and you're already planning to use my dowry to support your best friend's widow. Why don't you just marry her yourself? That way you can take care of her for the rest of your life, fair and square. Ethan's face turned stormy, but before he could respond, Lisa suddenly covered her face and started crying. Sophie, it's my fault. It's all my fault. I just admire you too much. I envy that you get to marry Ethan, such a good man. I envy that you get to take wedding photos with him. If it makes you upset, I'll go back right now. I won't take the photos. Is that enough? Ethan immediately grabbed her hand, stopping her. No. I promised to take the wedding photos with you, and I keep my promises. If Sophie can't even tolerate something this small, then she's not worthy of being a daughter-in-law of the Miller family. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh? I'm not worthy of marrying into your family? I turned to him and said, Ethan, then let's break up. The moment the words left my mouth, I saw the flicker of joy in Lisa's eyes. Ethan's lips tightened in displeasure, and he spoke with a cold tone. Sophie, Lisa told me before that you used to bully her. I never believed it until today. Now I see it with my own eyes. You just can't stand her, can you? Well, let me make things clear for you. My best friend is gone. Lisa and the child she's carrying are my responsibility for life. If you can accept that, then come with me now to get our marriage certificate. If you can't, then we'll break up. I let out a mocking laugh. Then let's break up. I'm heading back to the city today. I won't waste your time. You and Lisa can go take your wedding photos in peace. Right in front of the entire village, I tore apart the flimsy illusion between Ethan and Lisa. Their faces flushed red with embarrassment, and immediately, the villagers burst into whispers and gossip. I knew it. I always suspected there was something between Ethan and Lisa, but no one believed me. Who would have thought? Lisa's pregnant with his best friend's child, yet she's already latched onto Ethan. Or maybe that baby isn't even his best friend's in the first place. Why else would Ethan be more worried about her pregnancy than the actual father? Exactly. He's the one running around borrowing money for her pregnancy supplements. If that's not suspicious, I don't know what is. Hearing the flood of gossip, I could barely hold back my laughter. Then, someone suddenly realized something. Wait a minute. Ethan said his future wife would help pay off the debts. But now that Sophie isn't marrying him anymore, who's going to take care of it? The villagers who had lent Ethan money immediately surrounded him, demanding an explanation. Ethan turned to me in desperation. Sophie, you promised. You said when your mom sent the money, you'd pay the debt. I shrugged. I also said that money was my dowry. Now that our wedding is off, you're not my husband. Why should you get to spend my dowry? Ethan froze completely. He and Lisa had planned to dump the entire $2,000 debt on me, then take the money and run. Since the IOUs were supposed to be signed under my name, the creditors would have come after me. But now, reality hit him hard. He suddenly remembered that I had never actually signed the IOUs. I leisurely watched the colors shift across Ethan's face, red with anger, white with shock, green with frustration. After enjoying the sight for a moment, I pulled out a stack of IOUs from my bag. With a flick of my wrist, the papers fluttered down like snowflakes, smacking directly onto his ashen face. You borrowed the money. Pay it back yourself. I'm done with this nonsense. With that, I swung my leg over my bicycle and pedaled away from the village that had trapped me for 5 years. Behind me, I heard Ethan's furious shouts and Lisa's frantic explanations. That money was all borrowed by Ethan. It has nothing to do with me. And then Ethan's enraged roar. You beat. I didn't even spend a single dime of that money. It all went to your damn pregnancy supplements. You want to wash your hands of this now? Keep dreaming. The scene was complete chaos. That day, I didn't manage to leave for the city as planned. The villagers had called the police, demanding that Ethan and Lisa repay their debts, but neither of them had the money. They kept insisting that the loans had been taken out under my name. The officers at the police station called me in for questioning. After I explained everything in detail, even the officers found the whole situation ridiculous. Since Ethan and I had never officially gotten married, we weren't legally considered husband and wife. That meant the debts Ethan incurred had nothing to do with me. On top of that, none of the IOUs had my signature. In the end, the police ruled that the debts were entirely Ethan's responsibility. I was released immediately, while Ethan and Lisa, unable to repay their loans, were trapped inside the station, surrounded by furious creditors who wouldn't let them leave. The next day, I finally boarded the train back home. Just as the train was about to depart, I saw Ethan on the platform. He was running alongside the train, shouting desperately, Sophie, I was wrong. I won't take care of Lisa or her child anymore. Please, just stay. I'll treat you well, I promise. What a joke. How exactly was he planning to treat me well? With his pathetic job as a film projectionist in town, earning $25 a month? Or with that lying mouth of his, always making empty promises. As soon as I stepped out of the station, I looked up and saw my parents standing in the crowd, with Zachary Evans beside them. My dad's eyes were red-rimmed, and my mom, without a word, smacked me hard on the arm. Before I could even say ouch, she pulled me into a tight embrace. "You little brat. You were willing to throw away your parents for some worthless man?" she scolded. "Do you dare pull this nonsense again?" I awkwardly glanced at Zachary. Looking back, during those years in the countryside, I had slowly fallen for Ethan, perhaps because I saw a bit of Zachary in him. Zachary and I had grown up together in the same military compound. We were childhood friends. Back then, he was the leader of the neighborhood kids, while I was just a silly little girl running around in toddler pants. He never really liked playing with us. But at the same time, he never let anyone from outside the compound bully us either. Later, when we were sent to the countryside, I ended up in Apricot Blossom Town, while Zachary's family was exiled to the farthest northern border because his grandfather had been labeled a political outcast. I never expected that after all these years, our families would end up arranging a marriage between us. Since our families knew each other well, and Zachary and I had grown up together, the engagement was settled quickly. A month later, Zachary and I got married. The wedding was held at the Evans family's ancestral estate. After their political status was reinstated, the Evans family reclaimed many of their properties, including their old estate, which was now a sprawling, elegant mansion reminiscent of a classical Suzhou garden. But my family wasn't lacking either. As part of my dowry, my parents gifted me half of their assets. Ethan probably never imagined that if he had been loyal to me, he could have had so much more than my mother's mere promise of $2,000. After the wedding, at my suggestion, Zachary and I entered the home appliance business. In my past life, Ethan's job as a film projectionist became obsolete not long after we got married. By the early 90s, more and more households had televisions and VCRs. Back then, I believed that Ethan's experience as a projectionist would give him an advantage in the industry, so I poured all my savings into his business venture. As luck would have it, he rode the wave of the times and eventually became the biggest home appliance tycoon in South City. This time, however, things wouldn't go so smoothly for him. With the Evans family's vast network of commercial properties in South City, Zachary and I had a significant advantage. We had lower rental costs when starting our business, and with the support of my dowry and the backing of my relatives, we quickly gained a foothold in the market. In just 2 years, Zachary and I became the dominant force in South City's home appliance industry. Meanwhile, Ethan had originally planned to scam me out of my dowry and elope with Lisa. But to his shock, I had called off our engagement and returned to the city instead. Now, the dowry that he had counted on was completely out of his reach. Not only did Ethan fail to get a single cent from me, but he ended up drowning in debt. I later heard that in order to repay what he owed, he actually convinced Lisa to sell her 3-room brick house. The money from the sale was used to clear his debts, and with what little was left, Ethan planned to follow the same path as in our previous life, buying and reselling home appliances to make his first fortune. But just as he was about to start, Lisa had a complicated childbirth. The irony was laughable. Back then, the two of them had used her supposed malnutrition as an excuse to trick me into lending money for her pregnancy supplements. But in the end, Lisa had overindulged during her pregnancy. The baby grew too large, and she nearly lost her life in labor. The child had been stuck in the womb for too long, and by the time he was born, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Lisa, due to excessive bleeding during childbirth, had to undergo a hysterectomy. She would never be able to have children again. The moment Ethan learned that Lisa could no longer bear children, his expression darkened. They had originally planned to get married after the baby was born, but now, 2 years had passed, and Ethan still refused to make it official. He was still dreaming of using Lisa's house money to start his appliance business in South City. In my past life, I had given Ethan every penny I had and even borrowed money from relatives to support his business. But this time, Lisa, terrified that he would abandon her once he got rich, refused to support him. Instead, she sent all their money to her maternal family. Unfortunately for her, her brother was a gambling addict. Within a month, he had lost every last cent of the money Lisa had stashed away at her parents' home. Ethan had already counted that money as his startup capital. When he found out it was gone, he nearly beat Lisa to death that very night. In this life, without my interference, Ethan and Lisa did get back together, but their fate was nothing like a fairy tale, where the prince and princess lived happily ever after. Ethan resented Lisa for ruining his engagement to me. He hated that she would rather throw their money away on her gambling brother than support his business like I had. When he realized that Lisa was of no help to his career and was nothing but a burden, Ethan began secretly going on blind dates behind her back. Lisa, on the other hand, had grown to hate Ethan just as much. She despised how his vows of lifelong devotion had been nothing but empty words. He had promised to take care of her and their child forever. But the moment she was penniless and infertile, he turned his back on her, and even dared to go behind her back looking for another woman. Now, without a home, and with her reputation in ruins, Lisa had no choice but to cling desperately to Ethan. Whenever he went on a blind date, she would show up holding their sickly child, kneeling in front of the other woman and sobbing, begging her to let Ethan go so that she and her child could have a chance to survive. Before long, matchmakers from all over town stopped introducing Ethan to potential brides. Lisa, seeing no way out, began forcing Ethan to marry her. But Ethan still clung to his dream of becoming the richest man in South City. To him, Lisa was just dead weight, useless to his ambitions. And so, they remained stuck in this entanglement for 3 years. Lisa never got the marriage she wanted, and Ethan never saved up enough money to start his business in South City. Meanwhile, Zachary and I had been anything but idle. With my suggestion, Zachary imported the latest home appliance production line from overseas. Not only did we sell home appliances, but we also expanded into manufacturing them. But no matter how busy Zachary was, he always insisted on taking me along on his trips. Whenever I was too lazy to go, he would put on a pitiful face and say, "If you don't come with me, the businessmen I meet will definitely arrange for women to entertain me. You have to protect my innocence." I couldn't help but laugh every time he said it. Then I got pregnant with triplets. The moment he found out, Zachary completely transformed into a homebody. He didn't even want to travel for business anymore. 8 months later, I gave birth to 3 beautiful babies, 2 boys and a girl. The moment they were born, Zachary cried like a child. And then, behind my back, he secretly went and got a vasectomy. When I found out, he justified it by saying, as a representative of private entrepreneurs, I should take the lead in following the policy. 1 pregnancy is more than enough. The pregnancy had taken a serious toll on my body. For the next few years, my health remained fragile. Zachary panicked and, for some reason, started listening to some spiritual guru, convinced that doing charity work would bring blessings to our family. I never expected that at one of these charity events, I would run into Ethan and Lisa again. Ethan had still not given up on his entrepreneurial dream. But this time, without my dowry and without my family's connections, he had nothing to rely on. Ethan had no choice but to start from the bottom. He rented a small storefront in Apricot Blossom Town and made a living repairing home appliances while dabbling in selling second-hand electronics. When he went out on repair jobs, he left Lisa to watch the store. That day, Zachary and I had just finished donating books, school supplies, and sports equipment to the elementary school in Apricot Blossom Town. As we stepped out of the school gates, a loud commotion erupted from the street. Looking up, I saw Ethan, dressed in a greasy work uniform, gripping Lisa's hair with one hand while slapping her viciously with the other. "You shameless whore," Ethan shouted. "How dare you close the shop and fool around with the barber next door while I am out working?" Lisa, her face red from the slap, screamed back, "You're the shameless one, Ethan. You want me to watch the store, cook, and clean, but you refuse to marry me and give me a proper title." As they argued, my name suddenly came up. Lisa, eyes filled with anger and humiliation, spat out, "Do you really think dragging this out means you'll get back together with Sophie? Keep dreaming. I already looked into it. Sophie has been married for years. She even has 3 kids now. Why the hell would she wait for you?" She sneered. "And her husband? He's the richest man in South City, a home appliance tycoon. Compared to him, you're nothing but a pathetic repairman, a toad dreaming of eating swan meat. Ethan's eyes turned bloodshot with rage. He clenched his fists, about to lunge at Lisa when, out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of me. He froze in place. "Sophie, you're back. I knew you wouldn't forget me." His voice trembled with excitement. "You love me so much, there's no way you'd marry another man, right? You were forced into it, weren't you? Your family pressured you, didn't they?" His voice grew increasingly desperate. "Sophie, don't be afraid. I never got married. I've been waiting for you this whole time. I'll kick this bitch Lisa out right now. I see her for what she really is. I swear, I'll never have anything to do with her again. We can be together, just like before." The sheer delusion in Ethan's eyes nearly made me gag. Zachary, clearly displeased, pulled me into his arms protectively. His sharp gaze landed on Ethan like a blade. Where did this lunatic come from? Ethan's eyes were locked on me, as if waiting for me to acknowledge our so-called relationship. I gave him a polite, indifferent smile and said casually, "Oh, he's just someone I used to know from my time in the countryside." Zachary frowned slightly and gestured to his secretary. "Go ask this man's family if they'd like to send him to a hospital for a mental checkup. Put the fees on my personal account." Ethan flinched as if struck. His face twisted in disbelief, and he started shaking his head frantically. "No, I'm not crazy. Sophie is my wife. She was supposed to be my wife. There must be some kind of mistake." Zachary ignored him, calmly guiding me into the car. As we drove away, I turned my head just in time to see Ethan lose all semblance of control. He was screaming my name like a madman in the middle of the street. After that charity event, I didn't visit Apricot Blossom Town for a long time. The next time I heard about Ethan, it was during a summer camp our company had sponsored for underprivileged children. As part of the program, we invited children from various towns, including a few from Apricot Blossom. One of the students shared a horrifying story. He spoke about a tragedy that had taken place in his town. Apparently, one of his former classmates, a child with cerebral palsy, had been eligible for financial aid from a charitable foundation. But when his father heard that the sponsor was our company, he refused the assistance outright. Later, the child had been playing in their store and accidentally damaged a batch of DVD players that his stepfather had just stocked. Furious, the man nearly strangled the child with an electric cord. The child's mother had thrown herself at him trying to save her son, only to be stabbed over 30 times with a fruit knife. She bled out on the spot. When the murderer was arrested, he was still screaming about how he was destined to become South City's richest man and how he was going to start over from scratch. By then, Ethan had already been executed. After Lisa's death, their child born with cerebral palsy was abandoned. No relatives were willing to take him in, so he was sent to an orphanage. Ethan's final moments, a side story. After Sophie left, I thought I would be happy. I thought that in this life, I could finally grow old with the woman I loved. But it didn't take long for both Lisa and me to regret it. She resented me for being useless, our family had no money, and I couldn't give her the same life she had before, where she ate red dates, brown sugar, and donkey-hide gelatin every day. I mocked her, saying she had the habits of a noblewoman, but the fate of a servant. She had known that the only reason she lived so well before was because Sophie had been supporting me. And now, after forcing Sophie out of my life just to marry me, she turned around and blamed me for not holding on to her. I regretted it too. Even though I had lived a second life with the memories of my past success, without Sophie's dowry, without the Evans family's support, I couldn't even dream of selling home appliances in South City. I couldn't even keep a small repair shop running in Apricot Blossom Town without trouble. I tried to handle things the way I had in my past life, by calling the police. Back then, Sophie's uncle had been a high-ranking official, and with just one phone call, no one dared to cause trouble for us again. But this time, Lisa's uncle was nothing but a gambling addict who was more of a burden than a help. He even came to our store to freeload off us. When I reported the local thugs, the police barely did anything. They scolded them a little and let them go, and soon enough, they started coming back for revenge. Every morning when I opened the shop, they would come and make trouble. I had no choice but to start paying protection money, 30% of my earnings, just to keep the store open. I truly regretted everything. I worked myself to the bone, taking on as many repair jobs as possible, hoping to save up enough money to leave this place, return to South City, and get Sophie back. But for some reason, every time I managed to save a little, something would happen that drained it all away. The first year, our son, born with cerebral palsy, developed epilepsy. All our savings were wiped out, and we fell into tens of thousands in debt. The second year, my father was gored to death by a crazed bull while herding cattle. The funeral cost me everything I had. The third year, my mother attempted suicide by drowning but was rescued. The medical bills drained every last cent I had painstakingly saved. In my past life, Sophie had taken care of everything at home. My parents had lived well into their 90s, and I never had to worry about a thing while I was out building my career. But this time, every small crisis at home was enough to ruin me. And Lisa? All she ever did was cry. At first, I had the patience to comfort her. But over time, the sound of her sobbing filled me with uncontrollable rage. I wanted to strangle her. It was all her fault. If Lisa had just stayed in her lane, instead of seducing me while she was widowed, Sophie and I would have been married long ago. But now, every time I came home, all I was greeted with was Lisa's endless wailing and our useless, troublemaking son. If I had known that being with Lisa would end up like this, I would have dragged Sophie to the registry office the moment I was reborn. My thoughts snapped back to the present as I looked at the chaotic, run-down repair shop. I knew my life was over. So I killed Lisa with my own hands. I didn't try to run. I just sat there, quietly waiting for the police to arrive. When I was sentenced to death, I didn't feel afraid. In fact, I even felt a hint of joy. In my past life, I had only been reborn after dying. Maybe this time, if I died sooner, I would see Sophie again sooner. In my next life, I would love her properly. I would never let another man take her from me again. Sophie, wait for me. I gave up my guaranteed admission spot for my childhood friend, Ryan. But because of his so-called white moonlight, Emma, she didn't get into the same school as him. He resented me, accused me of deliberately breaking them apart. If I hadn't secretly read your diary, I never would have realized you had a crush on me. You clearly knew her grades were terrible, yet you insisted I take the guaranteed admission to Tsinghua, just so I'd be separated from her. Claire, not only are you malicious, you disgust me. Later, when Ryan rose to success and became someone powerful, the first thing he did was destroy my family. But when I opened my eyes, I was back to the moment I had just received the guaranteed admission. I smiled. This time the bright future would be mine, and that seemingly perfect but rotten love would be his. Sunlight streamed through the glass windows of the long hallway, casting faint diagonal shadows across the floor. I stood there in a daze. I was really back, in my senior year of high school. My fingertips trembled, I sniffled, almost bursting into tears. A voice pulled me back to reality. It was low and domineering. Claire, I can't walk home with you today. I'm going with Emma. It was Ryan. I turned my head instinctively, and the moment I saw his face, a wave of nausea surged from within me, along with a deep-rooted fear I couldn't suppress. I subtly took a step back, hiding the unease in my expression, watching as he forced a small smile. Ryan seemed surprised that I agreed so quickly. He looked at me for a moment, as if hesitating. Tomorrow then. I'll walk you home tomorrow. Right after he spoke, a girl's voice called from the other end of the hallway, urging him impatiently. Ryan, you're taking forever. Are we going or not? He ran toward her, and I swallowed back what I wanted to say. What I really wanted to tell him was, you don't need to walk with me. The farther away you are from me, the better. In my previous life, I had feelings for Ryan. We grew up together as childhood sweethearts, side by side through many of life's important moments. In elementary school, we cheered each other on during speeches under the national flag, encouraging and comforting one another with toothy, innocent smiles. In middle school, I was weak and often in the hospital. He would stay by my side, explaining the new material he had just learned. Later, we both got into a top-tier high school. Holding our acceptance letters, we chatted leisurely. His eyes curved with a smile. I knew you'd make it. But Claire, don't slack off in high school. These 3 years are critical. I nodded with a bright smile, unable to hide my excitement for high school. Everything was becoming clearer, like fog lifting, like finding direction in thin air. The endless warnings and advice from our elders transformed into motivation. I was full of hope for the future, like a fish desperate to leap through the dragon gate. "So let's make a deal," he said, lowering his voice. "Which college do you want to go to?" "Tsinghua," I replied, holding my high school admission letter, already imagining myself dyeing my hair green. I figured even then, my mom would still say I looked elegant. Ryan laughed uncontrollably. "Then let's both apply to Tsinghua." I thought Ryan and I would stay on the same path, finish high school together, and apply to the colleges we truly liked. But everything gradually changed. He met Emma, got close to her, and eventually, they got together. During that time, his grades took a nosedive. I tried to gently remind him during our chats. "Hey Ryan, did you do the biopractice test the grade level just handed out? There's one question I don't quite get. Can you help me?" But Ryan was busy taking a call. His face carried a faint smile as he soothed whoever was on the other end. "Stop acting cute, okay?" Then he turned to me and said, "Ask the teacher tomorrow. I've got something else going on." Right after, he yanked the curtain shut with a swish, completely shutting me out. His movements were impatient, and he had zero interest in anything related to studying. I looked away, and in that moment, the image of the boy who once said we'd go to Tsinghua together began to fade in my mind. I sighed, returned to my desk, slipped the completed bio test into my backpack, and under the soft yellow light, started drawing auxiliary lines on the math problems again and again, repeating formulas, drilling endlessly. Until that year in senior high, when I won an award in the national physics competition. When my guaranteed admission offer came through, I overheard the teachers talking as I passed by the office door. "That kid Ryan from your class, he seems to be spending a lot of time with that girl from class 2. Don't even mention it. I've already spoken to him multiple times, it's no use. He won't listen. This is a really bad time for that kind of distraction." I stopped in my tracks. My connection with Ryan made it impossible for me to ignore what was happening to him. "Just look at his grades," one teacher said, his voice low, but heavy with concern. "Especially his physics. His scores have dropped terribly. At this rate, it'll be tough for him to get into any 85 university. But that girl Claire in your class, she's doing amazing. Ever since the school year started, she's been completely steady. Always ranked number 1 in the grade. No wonder she got the guaranteed admission. That girl's future may not be all smooth sailing, but it definitely won't be rough." Their words echoed in my ears like a tiny hammer knocking at my heart. I thought of Ryan's childhood smile, the one with the gap in his teeth, and his bright, passionate eyes when we were young. I stood there, torn and uncertain, then finally let out a long sigh and knocked on the office door. "Teacher," I said softly, "please give my guaranteed spot to the next person in line. My grades? I think I'll be fine taking the college entrance exam." I paused, then added, "I entered the physics competition with Ryan. He only scored 5 points less than me. He was the runner-up. As his friend, this is the last thing I can do for him." After everything was finalized, I didn't go to Tsinghua. Instead, I enrolled at another 985 university in Beijing. But somehow, Ryan ended up finding my diary. He opened it and confronted me with the evidence laid bare between us. His expression was full of disgust. His eyes carried an undeniable hatred. "If I hadn't read your diary, I never would have known you had a crush on me," he said coldly. "You knew my grades weren't good, and you still insisted on taking that spot at Tsinghua. You just wanted to separate me and Emma. Claire, you're so vicious." I was shocked, overwhelmed, and at a loss for words. My face went pale under his icy glare. There was no way I could explain it all clearly. "No, Ryan," I started, voice trembling. "If you and she had gone to the same school, then your academic performance." But he threw the notebook at me before I could finish. His voice was like ice. "That's none of your business. You have no right to make decisions for my life. If I could, I wish I had never met you. You honestly make me sick." I stood there, watching Ryan's back as he walked away. My eyes stung, not because of the secret feelings he'd exposed, but because someone who used to be so close to me had become a stranger. And stabbed me straight in the heart. It wasn't anger or heartbreak, just bitter confusion and sorrow. At the very least, I had thought that, after all our years growing up together, Ryan would understand me. But I had clearly underestimated how much he loved Emma. In the days that followed, I couldn't help but resent my past self for giving up that admission spot. Pushing my bike along the quiet path, I was walking slowly when someone called out to me. "Why are you walking alone?" Snapping out of my thoughts, I turned my head. A boy on a bicycle coasted over, one foot playfully kicking at the breeze. His profile was delicate and refined, his nose high and straight as he tilted his head to look at me. It was Jason, the class president from Shen's class, and another student who had qualified for guaranteed admission like me. I smiled faintly. "Just no one to walk with today." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Holding a grudge? I thought you usually walked with Ryan." I hesitated for a moment. "We don't walk together anymore. I think being alone feels pretty good." "Then let's walk together." I looked at him, surprised. He smiled gently, like a breeze brushing across the moon. "We're heading the same way anyway. Might as well. Mostly, I wanted to ask you something about our coursework." I nodded. "Sure." Jason rode alongside me, and I glanced at the familiar road, one I had walked with Ryan countless times before. I couldn't stop my thoughts from drifting back to my past life, when Ryan went to Tsinghua and carried on a long-distance relationship with Emma. Ryan was constantly running back and forth, juggling his studies while trying to make time for Emma. The pressure wore him down. He became exhausted, hollow-eyed, and drained. Eventually, another person came between them, and Emma broke up with him. Ryan blamed everything on the decision I had made. After the college entrance exams, I got into another dream university, not Tsinghua, but no easier. I remember my junior and senior years being a whirlwind. I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between campus and my internship site just to finish my thesis. Later, after graduation, I got a job and kept my head down, working diligently at my position. But the truth was, I never really liked the major I had chosen. Because of that, I lacked any true passion for my work. I did what was expected, completed my tasks, collected my salary, and lived a plain, uneventful life. Still, every so often, I'd recall the look on Ryan's face when he found my diary, that disgusted expression of his. Did I ever really let it go? Maybe not. Maybe I just came to terms with it. What I didn't expect was that Ryan never let it go either, not even close. He cared far more about it than I ever imagined. One time, our company was launching a new product, a cutting-edge drone, and since I had a background in physics, my boss brought me along to explain the tech to a potential partner. That partner's company turned out to be Ryan's. Publicly, Ryan had a great reputation, but at that business dinner, he went out of his way to embarrass me. He made cutting remarks that left me no room to save face. He even told my boss that because of my personal conduct, he was unwilling to collaborate with our company. My boss was furious. I was demoted. In the end, Ryan only agreed to the partnership on one condition: that I'd be fired. And just like that, I lost my job. But it didn't stop there. Ryan had received a top-tier education and built an extensive network. His social status kept rising, and thanks to his good looks, he even had a presence online. He cleverly used social media, investing in promotion, to draw attention. Then he used that attention to smear me. He painted me as someone who sold company secrets to foreign organizations for personal profit. I tried to defend myself, but the internet exploded with accusations and insults. I was overwhelmed by abuse and suspicion from every direction. I locked myself in my room for days on end, sinking into anxiety and depression, consumed by self-doubt. Eventually, I started to believe the lies myself. Everything reached a breaking point when someone online exposed my family's home address. They came straight to my parents. That's when I snapped. I screamed at them, my voice hoarse. "Get out! Stay away from my family! Get the hell out!" My mom clutched my sleeve, gently patting my shoulder, her face full of concern. "Claire, what's going on?" My dad, who had always had a hot temper, grabbed a broom by the door and started swinging it at the mob outside. Each strike hit its mark. The crowd began filming, hurling insults. I knew it, like daughter, like family. "We're just here to verify some facts. No need to get violent." She's exactly like the rumors said. Disgusting. After that day, it wasn't just me living under public judgment. My parents' lives were dragged into it too. The internet, a double-edged sword, turned its sharpest side against them. My dad, who worked at a factory, got into an argument with someone on the job. "Hey Song," a coworker said, "how could your daughter mess things up so badly? Now the whole world knows." "What'd you just say?" my dad snapped. "You heard me. Your daughter's a traitor." "Say that again. I dare you." And then my dad hit him. "Why are you hitting me?" He was already getting older. The attack left him with torn ligaments and broken bones. He ended up in the hospital. Not long after, my mom collapsed at the market during a heated argument and died from a sudden stroke. It was absurdly dramatic and completely unexpected, but it really happened. To me, Ryan's revenge didn't stop with me, he extended it to my parents. I hated him. But more than that, I hated the version of myself who once thought giving up that college spot for him was the right thing to do. 3 years later, my dad passed away too. The grief of losing my mom pushed him into deep depression, and he eventually took his own life. I had lost everything. I drifted through life in a daze. Even in my dreams, I often thought, if I could live again, I would stay far away from Ryan, no matter what. That night, after getting home, I shut the window and pulled the curtains tight. Ryan and I had lived across the street from each other since we were kids. Whatever was on our minds or worth sharing, we always passed it across the night sky. He even crafted a long retractable net for us to send things back and forth between our windows. But around junior year, after he met Emma, we stopped talking as much. I let out a quiet breath and opened the drawer of my desk, finding the notebook that once held all my secrets. I flipped to the first page. I kept flipping through the pages, one after another. From elementary school to high school, I had recorded all the thoughts I never voiced to Ryan, my silent feelings, the academic promises we made, the memories I held close. My fingertips stopped at the last dated entry. It was just a few days ago. The moment I saw Ryan's name, my stomach turned. The disgust I felt for him had carved itself deep into my heart. I never imagined he'd remember my family's downfall from the previous life so clearly. How could I not hate him? Of course I did. But still, I carefully closed the notebook and placed it back into the drawer. There's nothing wrong with someone who keeps their promises and works hard to live a good life. The person who's wrong is the one who walks the wrong path and tramples all over the sincerity of others. I accepted the reality of my rebirth, adjusted my mindset, and quickly threw myself into school life. "Hey, did you hear? Ryan and Emma are officially together," Nick said, nudging my shoulder, his face full of curiosity. In times of stress, everyone becomes restless, desperate to cling to gossip and recycle it into something they can chew on endlessly. They treat it like seasoning, something to spice up the dullness of everyday life, something to laugh and chatter about. I walked to my seat by the window. "Ryan and Emma, huh? That's not bad. They do seem like a good match." At least for now, it looked like Ryan was on the path he wanted. But something didn't sit right with me. They looked good together, sure, but the timing just felt off. I took a bite of my spicy chicken and raised an eyebrow at Nick. "What is it?" "It's just, why now? Why not earlier or later? This is the worst possible time. It's gonna mess with his grades." I laughed and patted his arm. "Don't worry about other people, Nick. Everyone makes their own choices. In my previous life, I did envy them for a while after they got together. I remember how smitten Ryan was with Emma back then. It didn't surprise me. Honestly, under those circumstances, I would have found it strange if any guy didn't like her. She was a transfer student who joined us in junior year. During the opening ceremony, she performed a beautiful violin piece that immediately pulled at everyone's heartstrings. The sunlight shone down on her like she was a princess who descended from the heavens. Even I clapped. She was graceful and gorgeous. But it was only for a moment. At the time, I didn't even know about the guaranteed admission offer. I just wanted to throw myself into my studies. After that fleeting admiration, I dove right back into my books. I'd be out the door before sunrise, biting into a bun on my way to school, and I wouldn't pack up for home until long after dark. There was always a cup of bitter black coffee sitting in the top left corner of my desk. I'd mutter classical Chinese poems under my breath as I walked, terrified that one misstep would send my whole future off course. As for Nick, I couldn't hold back and finally asked him, "Are you holding a grudge or something?" Nick raised an eyebrow. "Why? I like who I like. Does there have to be a reason to like someone? I nodded slowly, tilting my head to look at him. What kind of person do you think Ryan is? I'd always been curious. Emma always thought Ryan's impulsive intensity came from her own charm. She believed he was wild for her. But to me, Ryan was like a little sun, radiant, but also arrogant and willful. At times he could be gentle and surprisingly considerate. Emma came from a wealthy family. She never had to worry about school and had a ton of talents under her belt. Ryan, on the other hand, grew up with divorced parents and was raised by his aunt. Maybe in a way, Emma was the antidote to his chaos. She brought freshness into his life, things he'd never experienced before. She was, in every sense, the opposite of me. The moment I locked eyes with Ryan, something strange happened. He felt unfamiliar, almost like a stranger. I opened my mouth to say something but hesitated. Maybe now isn't the best time, I finally said. This phase is really important. There's not much time until graduation. Some things can wait. Maybe just hold on a little longer. Ryan looked me up and down, then gave a small laugh. Forget it. You wouldn't understand. I closed my mouth and didn't speak again. Ryan, what are you doing? Emma was always clinging to him, fiercely possessive. Every time she looked at me, it was with a calculating stare. Ryan turned back toward her. He spoke with irritation in his voice, but the smile tugging at the corners of his mouth betrayed him. What? Think I'm cheating on you? He called out as he jogged over to Emma. Naturally, he reached out and gently ruffled her hair. Emma lifted her leg and playfully kicked him. I'm going go-karting this afternoon. You better stay put and study like a good boy. Ryan frowned and gave the side of her neck a soft squeeze. I'll come with you. Emma reached out and lightly scratched the center of Ryan's palm. His ears turned red. We're at school, he whispered, a warning in his tone. Watch yourself. Emma just let out a crisp laugh in response. In that hallway, crowded with passing students, a few people shot them envious glances. I watched Ryan walk farther and farther away until his figure became a fading silhouette, dissolving into a dark dot at the far end of the corridor, heading in the opposite direction from mine. A week later, both Jason and I received our guaranteed admission offers. Jason had earned his through a chemistry award. He waited for me at the doorway. Congratulations, he said with a warm smile. You too, I replied, and I meant it. We walked side by side. Jason seemed to recall something suddenly. You know, I had a senior from the year before who also got a guaranteed admission. He had a really close friend, a girl. She used to be a good student, but her grades dropped sharply during their last year. So he gave his spot to her. I paused mid-step and looked at him. And then? Jason's dark eyes flickered with a hard-to-read emotion. He gave a half-joking smile. Well, that senior really paid the price. They had a falling out, stopped being friends completely. She even got him fired from his job later. I stared at him for a second. What about you, Jason? If your friend were in that situation, would you give up your spot? Right then, Ryan came walking toward us from the opposite direction. His hair was messy like he'd rushed to get here. As he passed us, he looked Jason over, then turned to me. Claire, I need to talk to you, he said, pulling me aside. He lowered his eyes. Your mom works at the hospital, right? Emma's dad had an accident and was admitted. Could you ask your mom to keep an eye on him? It sounded like a request, but his tone held more command than courtesy. Like in his world, I would always say yes. I looked up at him and gently pushed his hand away. I don't know Emma personally, and I don't have a reason to do that. Besides, this is between the adults. Neither of us can really help, and it's better if we don't get involved. Ryan rarely asked people for anything. For a boy just 17 or 18, it wasn't easy to lower his pride. But in that moment, it was clear he wanted to carry everything for the girl he loved. His expression froze. Until now, I had never turned him down. His voice grew cold. This is the first time I've ever asked you for anything, and the last. I blinked slowly, pretending I didn't see the frost spreading across his face. This is childish, Ryan. You need to take care of what's yours first. Only then can you build the strength to carry something or someone else. I didn't say more. There was nothing else to explain. I can't help you with this. I walked back toward Jason, not even glancing at the expression darkening across Ryan's face. Jason shifted his gaze from Ryan to me. Then he smiled and reached out to ruffle my hair. So, anywhere you've been wanting to go lately? Haven't really thought about it, I replied. Ryan stood alone behind us, watching as Jason and I walked away. A strange flicker crossed his eyes. So, Jason said, what's your answer? We stepped outside the school gates. To what? If your friend asked, and you knew they wouldn't. I looked at the early spring buds unfurling on the trees and replied, absolutely not. Some lessons only need to be learned once. In my last life, I had said yes. I had begged my mom to help keep an eye on Emma's father during his hospital stay. That was around the time Emma's family started to fall apart. They went bankrupt. Their quality of life kept declining, and her father's sudden illness only pushed them further into hardship. Ryan stayed by her side constantly, so much so that he completely abandoned his own studies. And just like before, I gave up my guaranteed admission spot for him. Once again, Ryan stayed by Emma's side wholeheartedly and made up his mind to apply to the same university as her. In our previous life, because I had interfered, they ended up in separate cities, one in the north, one in the south. Emma's life steadily declined under the weight of her family's troubles. With no one around to support her, she would call Ryan, but he often didn't pick up. The emotional distance, the suspicion and doubt that built between them during their long-distance relationship, eventually wore her down. She began to let her guard down around the guys who were pursuing her nearby. In the end, she broke up with Ryan. At least from his perspective, everything started unraveling the moment I made that decision for him. He blamed me for the collapse of his love life, and his hatred toward me only grew stronger. So this time, if it was your choice, Ryan, what consequences will it bring? Senior year flew by in the blink of an eye. Jason and I visited the Tsinghua campus in advance, and with some time left before the semester started, we took the opportunity to travel during the off-season. After the college entrance exam, the great dividing line, everyone's fate began to branch out in different directions. Social hierarchy took shape through school names. As students screamed in celebration, their voices scattered like falling leaves across the streets. Ryan and Emma both ended up at the same second-tier university, which drew some pity from others. Ryan really went all in for love, someone said. Man, I could never do that. My mom would break my legs. Not even your mom. Your girlfriend wouldn't let you either, another chimed in. That's just dumb. Some kind of love martyr thing? Beats me. Maybe some girls are into that, someone else added. But honestly, Ryan's grades did drop. Yeah, he ranked near the bottom of the class by the end of senior year. Out of over 1,000 students, nearly all liberal arts, he was in the 700s. Even if he did well on the exam, he was never going to stand out. A few days before college started, my house was filled with friends. Some were longtime buddies, others were heading to Beijing too. Everyone was in high spirits. At the center of the room, a guy popped a mini firework cannon toward the ceiling and leapt into the air like a monkey, shouting joyfully, "Cheers to Claire and Jason!" Ha ha! Legends. Mad respect, someone yelled, raising a drink. Nick lifted his cup to toast Jason and downed it in one go. Jason froze for a second, reaching for a beer, but I stopped him. Turning to Nick, I asked, "You pulling that green tea act again?" Nick giggled with mischief, his eyes flicking between Jason and me, clearly teasing. He raised his eyebrows and made suggestive faces like he was watching a rom-com. I pulled my hand back like I'd touched something hot. Jason rubbed the bridge of his nose, embarrassed. My phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw a message from Ryan. "Claire, I need to talk to you. Are you really going to keep ignoring me out of spite? I want to talk about the college choices. My dad's sick." "You think I made the wrong decision too, don't you?" No one understands me. I paused at the fourth message, thumb hovering over the screen. In our past life, his dad had been perfectly healthy. No illness, no sudden problems. But now, this sudden sickness, how could it not be connected to the choices Ryan made? I couldn't think of another explanation. The room around me was loud and chaotic. It wasn't the right time to type much, so I kept it short. "I'll tell my mom about your uncle. As for your choices, we're all adults now. We each have to take responsibility for our own decisions." I set my phone down and rejoined the game. Jason looked at me. "What is it?" "Ryan messaged you about school stuff?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. His voice grew louder as he cracked open a beer and took a sip. "Everyone you're close with is here. Your parents are working. Who else would he turn to?" I sighed. "You're not wrong. What do you think about all of it?" "His college decision?" Jason squinted at me. "Well, he chose it himself. Can't blame anyone else for that. Not everyone's lucky enough to have someone give up a guaranteed spot for them." I smiled faintly. "You're right." Time moved faster than I expected. Before I knew it, our first semester of college had flown by, and the people we once shared a classroom with, their lives had already started to drift worlds apart. Every now and then, I'd hear someone was going abroad, or that old classmates had bumped into each other at debate competitions or intercollegiate events. Everyone naturally split into different circles. Those who ended up at similar tier schools grew closer. The once envied relationship between Ryan and Emma gradually faded from people's conversations. Back in high school, young love was something people looked up to. It was a source of fascination in an otherwise monotonous senior year. But once high school was behind us, all that glamour began to dim. Pretty faces were everywhere now, and the world was full of people who were both talented and attractive. Everyone was stepping into the real world. Only the strong got lifted to the top. The rest, they just became stories, lessons told in passing, summarized as, "What a shame." Nick once picked up my physics competition medal and out of nowhere said Ryan and Emma broke up. "You guys were pretty close in high school, right? Not curious what happened." "What's there to ask?" I replied. "I heard it had something to do with Emma's dad being sick and needing a lot of money. There was this rich older guy near their school who started pursuing her. Ryan couldn't help financially, so he just watched her take the money to help her dad. The guy apparently told her the money was a gift, no strings attached, but Emma felt guilty and kept in contact with him anyway. Ryan found out, and they broke up." I paused. How was this any different from last time? Emma still ended up choosing someone else. I let out a breathless laugh. Emma and Ryan were both still so young when they swore to choose each other, not knowing what was ahead. But maybe it was only Ryan who had made it past the honeymoon phase. Once that newness faded, all the real problems surfaced, and only then did he start to seriously think about what their relationship meant. With the friction of daily life, their flaws became harder to ignore. Ryan eventually found Emma's chat history and snapped. "Emma, do you really think this is fair to me?" He shouted. "If it weren't for you, do you think I would have even come to this school? And now look what you've done." Emma took a drag from her cigarette, her voice calm and cold. "Ryan, I need money. You don't have any. That's just the reality of our situation." Her family's decline had changed her. She wasn't the same Emma from before. Narrowing her eyes, she pressed the cigarette out on the windowsill. "Tell me the truth. Do you love me, or do you love the shiny, perfect version of me? Or maybe you just love the idea of being moved by your own sacrifice?" Ryan stood there, trembling with rage. "So everything I did for us, it was all just for myself?" "That's not what I meant," she said. "That girl from your department who invited you out sent me photos of you two. I called you 3 times that day. You didn't answer once." Ryan's face fell. "No, Emma, that's not what it looks like. She just wanted to say goodbye. I wasn't interested in her." "You don't have to explain," Emma replied flatly. "I don't really care anymore. Honestly, if you hadn't applied to the same school as me, we'd have broken up a long time ago. The spark only lasted a few days. Ryan, let's just break up." When Nick finished retelling the story, I went quiet for a second. So this was what he called love? It was rotten to the core. I never saw Ryan again. Or maybe I just didn't want to see him. Whenever he came to my house, I'd find an excuse to go to Jason's place. The next time we crossed paths was during junior year break. Word had it Ryan kept going back and forth with Emma after their breakup. He even took a year off to start a business and make money. But he misread the market and mistimed the opportunity. After a year of breaking even, he went back to school. By then, Emma was still in her junior year and dating that same older man. Ryan got into a fight with him and ended up in jail. The guy made bail. Ryan didn't. He stayed locked up a few extra days and ended up with a record on his file. They never spoke again after that. Ryan started going through girlfriends one by one. That passionate, all-consuming high school love of his, had come to a complete end. In my last life, after their breakup, Ryan would secretly take the train just to catch a glimpse of Emma. He'd wire the money he earned from part-time jobs to her bank account. Even after graduation, when Emma married young, she became his lingering obsession. And now, his so-called white moonlight had turned into black moonlight. That love he'd once romanticized, now it looked like nothing more than a withered rose. Looking deeper, I finally saw that what once looked like love was just a rotting swamp underneath. During junior year break, I stayed home, sleeping in way too late. I'd been flipping day and night, stuck revising my third-year thesis draft. With huge dark circles under my eyes, I held the phone up to my ear, croaking out a reply to Jason's call. "You're not coming back for break?" He answered, his voice carried by a soft breeze. "Using my scholarship money to take my parents on a trip." "All right, see you back at school." Jason laughed gently. "Your voice sounds wrecked. What happened? Your girlfriend poisoned you?" I rolled my eyes. "No, your girlfriend's just dying from exhaustion." A knock came at the door. My mom cracked it open just slightly. "Ryan and his dad are here," she said. "Come out and say hello." I hung up the phone, pulled myself upright, changed into something comfortable, and brushed my hair before stepping out to greet Ryan's father. "Hello, Mr. Walker," I said politely. He smiled. "Ryan had something he wanted to ask you. You two can talk inside." I shut the door behind us and handed Ryan a glass of water. He sat down in the chair by my desk while I sat on the edge of my bed. Ryan looked different now. The arrogance and confidence that once shone on his face were gone. All I could see was exhaustion, a cautiousness toward the world, and the weariness of someone being slowly crushed by life. There was no smile. His eyes were heavy, his emotions unreadable, just another ordinary person worn down by society. I looked at him and said flatly, "Whatever you want to ask, just say it." His lashes trembled slightly. He took a sip of water, a strange look flickering through his eyes. "Emma and I broke up." I nodded. "Yeah? If it's about your relationship problems, there's really nothing I can teach you." I was already irritated. Ryan still seemed stuck in his high school mindset, still acting like his love life was the center of everyone's attention. He assumed people cared, assumed I cared. But I didn't. I just didn't want him showing up in my life. I didn't want any part of it. "Claire," he said, "you act like I'm a stranger now." Ever since I got with Emma, I stared at him. "What are you trying to say?" "Or let me ask you this," he said, changing tack. "Back in high school, did you ever like anyone?" I understood immediately. Somehow, Ryan had figured it out, or maybe he'd heard it from someone, that I used to like him. "I did," I said bluntly. "I used to like you, but not anymore." Ryan froze. He hadn't expected me to say it so directly. "Any other questions?" He looked at me, something stormy brewing in his eyes. He opened his mouth, voice trembling. "Why didn't you stop me?" "Stop you from what?" "Everything," he burst out. "Being with Emma. Running around for her, choosing that school. You never said you liked me. If you had, maybe things would have been different. Why didn't you? Why couldn't you?" I laughed coldly, stood up and walked over to him. Grabbing the collar of his shirt, I pulled him close. "In this life you've done nothing to me," I said. "So maybe I could have just tolerated your presence, but I didn't expect you to be this disgusting." Last time, he didn't have a chance to blame everything on me. But this time, he found a way to do it anyway. "Listen to me, Ryan. Maybe we used to be friends. But the moment you chose a different academic path, our lives were never going to overlap again. You had so many chances. How many people told you to shape up? You think just because I liked you, I had some obligation to interfere with your life? If I had tried to stop you, you'd have just blamed me for breaking up your tragic love story. You're not a child begging for candy anymore. Everything in your life, every mess, is the result of your own choices." Ryan stared at me, stunned. His face went pale. I could see my fierce expression reflected in his wide eyes. I let go of his shirt and calmly picked up a wet wipe from the table to clean my hands. "Don't come to my house again," I said. "I'm only letting you leave today out of respect for your father." Ryan reached out suddenly, trying to grab my hand. Claire, listen to me. I don't know how things ended up like this. I didn't mean what I said earlier." I jumped back, putting distance between us. "Shut your mouth," I snapped. So you let your mouth slip and everything you'd been thinking just poured out, huh? Don't make me slap you right here in my own house. Ryan finally went silent. Later, after I'd graduated and started working in Beijing with Jason, I brought it up again. You really told him that? Jason raised an eyebrow, but his face lit up with undisguised joy. My wife's a legend, he laughed. Guys like him deserve to be cussed out. He grinned ear to ear, shameless about it. I wrapped my arms around his neck and searched his eyes for a reflection of myself. But you didn't really like him that much in high school, did you? He asked, resting his chin on my shoulder, his voice low and calm. You liked him, but you think I could have gotten along with him? I kissed Jason lightly on the cheek. Let's not talk about it. I need to head to the office early today. A few new hires just came in. I'll need to help get them situated. I'll be here when you're back, he said, stretching. I'll cook something special for you while I'm on leave. I drove straight to the office and headed to my desk, bag slung over my shoulder. Manager Song, my assistant called out, the new hires are waiting in the lobby. Should I bring them over, or do you want to go meet them there? I'll head over once I'm done here. In the meantime, let them get familiar with the space. Got it. I tapped my fingers on the desk, choosing my words carefully. Any of them connected to higher-ups in the company? My assistant hesitated. Not officially, but you'll see. I see. Let me finish up here, then I'll meet them. When I finally went to greet the new hires, I spotted Ryan instantly. The second I saw the uncertainty in my assistant's expression earlier, I should have known. He used my name as a connection to slip through the back door and get a position at my company. So you really came, huh, Ryan? You walked straight into my turf, practically begging me to humiliate you. And why wouldn't I take the opportunity? I crossed my arms and smiled. So which schools are you all from? I might know a few of your classmates. You could spot the differences right away. Graduates from top-tier schools held their composure with ease. Those from slightly weaker programs managed polite smiles, but there was always a hint of hesitation. Then it was Ryan's turn. He went pale as he gave his answer, and heads immediately turned. There were only two explanations. Either he was outrageously talented, or he had connections. I looked him over slowly. He was nothing like the teenager I remembered. It's fine, I said. We value ability here. I assigned tasks to the group. Files have been sent to you. Each of you is responsible for one module. Finish it within 2 days and send the consolidated report to me. The internship lasts 2 months. That's all I'll say. Good luck. After work, Ryan was waiting outside the building for me. He trailed behind as I walked. Claire, I'm sorry. Could we have dinner tonight? I want to talk to you. I stopped and turned around, my face calm but cold. Do you have any self-respect at all, Ryan? What could you possibly have to say? You used my name to get a job here without even asking me. He stood frozen in place. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have. Wrong? I cut him off. You think there's still something between us? Let me be clear right now, I said, voice steady and sharp. I know why you're so obsessed with this. I even understand why you think I'm angry but won't do anything about it. So you keep circling me like a dog, hoping I'll give you something. I stared him down. Back in junior year, during break, you found my diary, didn't you? He flinched. Nailed him. How many times do I have to say it? I continued. Yes, I used to like you, but that was just a teenage crush on someone who was working hard like I was. It was admiration, maybe a sense of connection. That's it. Admit it, Ryan. The version of you from the past, he no longer exists. After the college entrance exams, those might have been the brightest days of your entire life, because every day since then, you've only been going downhill. No, Claire. Ryan's voice was worn, almost raspy. He still looked the same on the surface, still had that handsome, standout face that would catch a few extra glances in a crowd. His eyes had always been striking. After he got into Tsinghua, he kept that same youthful arrogance for a while. But all his obsession had gone to Emma, and all his resentment to me. In this life, that brilliance in his gaze, that quiet confidence, was gone. Give me time, he said. I'll prove to you that I'm still the same person I was. The breeze brushed past. I found myself silently laughing. I looked at him, then finally smiled. All right, I'll be watching. You've got 2 months. Surprise me. And it better turn out exactly the way I imagine it will. A few months earlier, I got a call from my mom. Claire, Ryan came by the house, she said. Brought a bunch of fruit, said he hoped you two could clear the air over break. You and his mom are clearly on your daughter's side. What do you want me to do? Since graduation, Ryan still hadn't found a job. He refused to go back to his hometown and settle for something stable. Always dreaming of a big city break, but without any real connections or platform, he tried, again and again, to shortcut his way in by using our past. Standing on the balcony, I watched the spring trees swaying gently below. Mom, give him my company address. That's all. Don't get involved otherwise. If Ryan wanted to get close again, fine. Let's see what he does. If he knows when to stop, we'll leave each other alone. But if he tries to push further, then I won't hold back. 2 days later, there was trouble among the interns. Are you all done? I asked. Yeah, mine's good. Just double-checking some formatting, one replied. Who's still behind? Ryan, I think. He's still got a lot left, slowing the whole group down. Ryan sat at his workstation, his hand clenched tightly on the mouse, sweat beading along his forehead. He couldn't keep up with the pace. The workload was beyond him. For this assignment, he'd need at least a week to complete his portion alone. Different academic environments breed different capabilities. Even if Ryan gave it everything he had, he couldn't close the gap between himself and the others, people who had years of hands-on experience and guidance from top-tier mentors. This was reality. He had no choice but to face it. Ryan stiffly turned to the guy next to him. His voice sounded like it had been scraped raw. Could you help me with this? I'm holding everyone up. I'm really sorry. The guy frowned slightly. That's probably not allowed. It's part of the evaluation. If the manager finds out, it'll be a problem. The disdain in his eyes was barely hidden. He clearly didn't think someone with Ryan's ability should be here, and didn't want to work with him. Ryan became the one no one wanted to team up with during the internship. He didn't fit in, didn't belong. He started to panic, restless, anxious, doubting himself. He used to believe that effort could make up for anything. He always thought that even if he made a wrong choice, he'd still have time to fix it later. Just turn around and everything could go back on track. But reality teaches you otherwise. Some missed chances are just missed. And every choice comes with its own price. Ryan didn't turn in his assignment. I leaned back in my chair. It's fine. I'll assign new tasks to everyone. Consider this part done. Ryan can skip it. A few interns hesitated, glancing at each other. One looked especially conflicted. Claire, do we need to help him with his tasks sometimes? I smiled. No need. He's an intern like the rest of you. No exceptions. Got it. 2 months flew by. No matter how hard Ryan worked, there was no way he could catch up to a gap of 1 or 2 years in just a few weeks. Everyone was called into my office. They stood in a line. Ryan was far to the left. I could see it in his face, the nervousness, the unease. He was no longer the boy who used to walk into a room and make everyone else fade into the background. Suddenly, my mind flashed back to junior year. Claire, catch this, he called. He opened his window and used a long-handled net to pass me a bag of snacks. My dad brought these back from a business trip. I smiled as I took it, then added a workbook to the net. Can you help me look at the last question in the big problem I marked? It's kind of tricky. I'll explain it to you tomorrow. Go to bed early. Ryan had always been naturally gifted in physics. He had excellent spatial awareness, while others needed time to sketch out a model. He could run it once in his head and get close to the answer. I'd always enjoyed studying with him, sharing academic discussions. Beyond any heart flutter, most of the time I simply saw him as a dear friend. But that boy, the one who once shone so brightly, was long gone. Back in the present, I closed the performance report and looked up at Ryan. Your internship has not passed. I'm sorry, Ryan. His head shot up. He opened his mouth, stunned. Other than the first assignment, I handed in everything on time. I tapped the desk, annoyed. Don't you get it? Every task I assigned, the others finished in a quarter, maybe a third, of the time you needed. I've been lenient, trying not to embarrass you. And you know exactly how you got in here. I didn't even go after you for using my name to get this job. I let it slide. Wasn't that generous enough? What more do you want? Clear your desk and take everything with you. The others couldn't hide their reactions. Some exchanged glances of thinly veiled contempt. A few instinctively covered their mouths, as if they'd just heard some scandalous revelation. I watched Ryan's face go ghost white and said slowly, word by word, "Everyone else has been accepted." Those who made it smiled as they left the room. "Thank you, Claire," someone shouted. "Drinks are on me tonight." Ryan stood frozen at my desk, his fingers trembling slightly, emotion rising in his eyes until it was almost too much to hold in. "Claire, did you do this on purpose? Did you set me up just to humiliate me? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Why are you so cruel?" "Claire, you're really cruel." He said it once, then again, just like before. I leaned back in my chair and looked up at him calmly. "Yes, I did it on purpose. I told you, Ryan, you can't blame anyone else for your choices. I warned you not to come to my house again, but you kept showing up, dragging my mom into it, using our old relationship. She helped you because you forced her to. And you walked in here under my name, thinking you could fool everyone. But I let you in, because how else would I have known just how shameless you've become?" Ryan's whole body shook. His breathing grew rapid, the hate in his eyes almost feral, as if he wanted to devour me. He shouted, "Claire, back then you didn't reach out a hand to help me. I let that go. But now you're kicking me while I'm down. You still hate me for the past, don't you?" I looked at him coldly, like I was watching a child throwing a tantrum. "Ryan, I don't hate you. I'm disgusted by you. Disgusted by what you've become. Disgusted that you blame everyone else for your failures. Wake up, the world doesn't revolve around you. Every step that's led you here, you chose it. Do you really think you're just as capable as the other interns? You're not. Working hard now doesn't erase the gap you created years ago. You still haven't learned to take responsibility for the choices you made back then. This world has already deleted you, Ryan." He stood completely still, staring at me like I was someone he didn't recognize, as if he couldn't understand how the girl who once walked beside him, who once laughed with him, had now become the boss who held his future in her hands. But everything that led here had been his choice. Expressionless, I picked up the phone. "Security, please escort him out." Jason and I had generous vacation time at work. That year, we returned home for Lunar New Year. One afternoon, while visiting a small local shop, I ran into Ryan again. He was standing at the cashier counter near the entrance of the small supermarket. The place was well-stocked, organized, looked like it was doing decent business. On my phone, short videos kept scrolling by one after another, loud, stimulating, the kind that kills time and numbs your brain. The owner came over to check out. Ryan set his phone aside and looked up. That was when I caught the panic in his eyes. The insecurity. It was as if he hoped I hadn't seen him. Or maybe he just didn't want to be seen at all. He kept his gaze lowered, bagging the items in silence. Finally, he scanned the last item, and we left together. As soon as I stepped out of the store, I let out a breath. The air inside had felt heavy, suffocating. Jason wrapped an arm around my waist. "What? Feeling sorry for him?" I glanced at him. "I thought you didn't even recognize him." Jason gave a faint smile. "Just trying to give him some dignity." Back at home, he held me close, wrapping me tightly in his arms. "To be honest, I always had this feeling you'd end up giving your guaranteed admission to him," he murmured. I reached up and gently tugged his ear, afraid I'd tie myself up in regret. "That story I told you about my senior who gave away his spot, that was made up." Softly, I replied. "I know." Jason looked up at me, eyes widening just slightly. And in that moment, I smiled and kissed him. "Because everything," I whispered, "has already started over again."